We're back in Sedgwick County, right around, circling Wichita. In the first video, we were in the southern kind of part of the county, and now we're going to be more in the northern part. We're kind of in the west central part here. We're at the St. Paul Lutheran Cemetery. I'm not sure there was ever a town here. I don't see a church either, but there is a cemetery that was started in 1884. And so I thought this would maybe, since it's kind of right in the middle over where similar places that we were in the first video, this would be a good place to start. So yeah, if you didn't watch that first video, make sure you check that out if you're interested in this area. And right near here down the street, actually one of the first ever ghost town videos of Kansas I did was about Marshall, Kansas. And it was a pretty important part in this area, or a pretty important town in this area, to move down to Cheney. And eventually they moved the town down there. And but yeah, it's just down the street from here. So I'm guessing this cemetery might have had something to do with that town. And obviously there's not a town here anymore. So yeah, let's head north a little bit and check out the northern half of Sedgwick County and see if we can find any ghost towns or small little communities that might not have gotten a lot of attention previously. Well, we've been finding a couple cemeteries, a couple locations of some, ghost towns, but there hadn't been a lot of buildings. And we've now reached St. Mark's, which has a little bit of both of those. We found some buildings and a cemetery and a historic church. And St. Mark's had a post office from 1879 to 1903, and certainly was a community and still is a community centered around the church. There's a old church there that's 1880 or 1875 it says on the sign, and so obviously that's kind of how the community built up. And in the early 1900s they had, like I said, a post office, and they had merchandise store, drugstore, hotel, blacksmith shop. So they had a community, and in 1910 the population was 60, and that was kind of the end of the, when the post office would have been around. And I would say there's probably about the same amount of population today. And it's, houses. There are a few old houses over by the church, but mostly newer houses, nice buildings that I'm sure that, like I mentioned at the beginning, it's all centered around the St. Mark Church. Right here, we're starting to get near some actual towns. And if you're wondering, I'm not gonna, in this video, profile like Colwich and Andale and Mount Hope. Those are all towns I plan someday to do, small town USA videos about, because they're bigger. So in this video, we're certainly looking for older communities that are no longer there, or maybe are just a very small fraction of what they used to be. So we'll continue to venture around here. We're more in the northwestern part of the county, looking for the little tiny dots on the map. We're in a really busy area here at the Maple Grove Cemetery, and kind of a few, I guess, interesting fun facts here. I came up here because on the map there's a dot called Spasticville, and it's a little bit unknown as to why that dot is there, but apparently in like the 1930s or 40s there was a home there that housed some mentally ill people, and so it got this nickname. It was never a town, and but online you can kind of find a couple little stories about it, and somehow it got onto a map, and it's still on the map that I have. So over where I went there, it's just a normal street. There's nothing obviously of the ville remaining from back then that I could see, but then the Maple Grove Cemetery here, we're right next to the Park City water tower, and it's an old cemetery. It's also right by the expressway, and so it's odd to have a cemetery so close to a kind of major expressway with a lot of traffic, but it's old cemetery. Most everything here is pretty old. This area of Sedgwick County has had a lot of interesting things. There's a casino and an arena here right within the mile here. There's like 3 or 4 little airports or little landing strips of some kind, and there was Wichita Coliseum back in the day was here, around here, and they had a dog track. Wild West World, if you remember that, for its short existence, was in this area. So a lot of ghost town type communities were in this area, and Park City is a widely expanding town through the years, so I'm sure at some point all these places will become more modern looking, but it's nice that the cemetery's here and a little bit of a connection with the what was here 150 years ago. The next dot on my map is Sunnydale, and it's kind of interesting. The only thing I could find online was that it had a post office from like 1877 to 1901, and it was spelled 2 different ways. It had Sunnydale as 2 words, and then Sunnydale as 1 word, and eventually. And so then I roll up here, and there's a building right here called the Sunnydale Community Building, and it says established 1906. So that's a different date than the dates I found online, and it's cool that there's an actual building here recognizing the community, that used to be there. And then they even have a little display in front of the building that talks about the history of like the Plains Indians, and the very last thing on there, it says Sunnydale Community was established in 1873. Very interesting. That's around when Wichita was established as, basically like a cow town. So I don't know much about the history other than that. I'm guessing if there was more history, they would have put it on the sign here, but pretty cool to find something in Sunnydale. I noticed there's a cemetery about 1 mile west of here. I don't know if it has anything to do with Sunnydale, so we'll go over there and check it out and see if the dates line up with the Sunnydale community. And as we come down the dirt road, we find it is Sunnydale Park Cemetery. And so on my map it said Park Cemetery. Obviously this is the Sunnydale Community Cemetery. I'm finding the dates on the headstones to be kind of all over the place in terms of how old they are. There are certainly some from back in the Sunnydale days when it was at least had a post office, and then many from more recent times. Furley is probably the ghost town we found today that has the most stuff, and it was, an important shipping area agriculturally for the northeast part of the county. Had a post office for over 60 years, from 1887 to 1953, and there are still some things here to see. This railroad has been owned by, it's had like 5 different owners, and I think originally it was the Chicago, Kansas, and Nebraska Railroad, and then has just gone through multiple changes of who's owned this line here. And they're still using it, obviously. And but in the town, there's a couple old buildings. There's one large building that's, I'm not quite sure what it is, but it doesn't look real old, but still significant there. And then there's looks like an old bank, and maybe where they had the safe that's still standing there. That's pretty cool. And there's a couple churches. There's a older church in town. There's a newer church just down the road a little bit. So definitely some things to see here in Furley. We've reached our final ghost town of Greenwich, and if you're from Wichita, that's one of the main roads, Greenwich Road, and that's kind of one of the main roads, kind of the north and south in Wichita. But I don't know how many of you from Wichita knew that there was a ghost town with the same name, and it was started, at least the post office, in 1874. And I'm currently in the cemetery here. It's about 2 miles from the town. And at the town, there's a couple of old buildings, there's a couple churches, and you can see the railroad, where the railroad goes through there. It was on the St. Louis and Wichita Railroad, St. Louis something in Wichita. So there's so many railroads went into Wichita, you kind of lose track of what they were all called. And had a post office and a community, still has a community there, but it's unincorporated. I haven't found where, if the post office ended. There was a building that said post office on the side. It did not appear that it was a modern post office of any kind, so I don't know if they still have a post office. It doesn't look like it, but it does say post office on the side of the building. Here at the cemetery, it's some older dates on the headstones, but a lot of newer dates, because we're basically in the Wichita suburbs at this point. And we're right across from Jabara Airport. It's probably the second airport in Wichita, the second biggest airport. The Eisenhower Airport is the main one, but there are some flights that go in and out of Jabara. A fun fact about Jabara Airport: a few years ago, there was a huge airplane called the Dreamlifter that landed at this airport by mistake. And it was a national news deal, and I think the runway was damaged because it was so large of a plane, and they had to bring in a special pilot to take it off again because it was such a big plane for a runway of that size. So when I go by Jabara, I always think of that. So we ended our tour. We did kind of south Sedgwick County in the first video, and more northern Sedgwick County. Wichita's kind of expanded to the north and east a little more than to the south and west. So the first episode had some more traditional ghost towns, but we found a couple interesting ones. Furley was good, and Greenwich had some, interesting buildings as well. So, whenever you're in a county with a big population, that's what happens, and as progress expands throughout the county. But the county had a lot more post offices, like over 100 post offices, and I'll put those on the screen, at least the ones that aren't still going as cities or towns. And obviously Wichita has a lot of different post offices within it. So, but here's all the different post offices through the years. It'd be fun to know where all those were located. We found a few of them in our exploration around Sedgwick County. fun to explore near where you live. I live about 10 minutes from where I'm standing, so I went to a lot of places I've never been before. That was a lot of fun. Thanks for making it all the way to the end of that video. And now that you're here, let me tell you a little bit about some of the extras that we have on the channel. One of the things you can do is you can become a member. There's 3 levels. There's the supporter level, there's the producer level, and the executive producer level. And all 3 levels have different perks, and as you are more supportive financially, there's more perks. We have extra videos every week and a lot of fun stuff going on in the member section. If you haven't done so, make sure you check out travelwithawiseguy.com. We've got lots of extra stuff on there, and one of the things is merchandise. You can get you Travel with a Wise Guy t-shirt. We have Death Go Round t-shirts. We have some coffee mugs, different things that are a lot of fun, and people seem to have enjoyed. Good quality there. Also on the website, you can do things like check out the Google map. I have a pin dropped in every place I've done videos about, then a link to the video so you can look at the map, and maybe there's somewhere where you live or somewhere you want to go. You can check out that map, and it seemed to be a very popular thing. You can sign up for my newsletter. I do that about every 3 weeks. It's totally free. And there's also all kinds of other links and tidbits in there, old videos, podcasts, just everything I could think of I throw on the website. So make sure you check out travelwithawiseguy.com. Thank you for everyone who has been supportive of this channel, and thank you so much for making it to the end of this video. And now for the reason you're probably here, the outtakes. St. Mark's. All right, let's give it a whirl. Ooh, really good. Spins easy. Pretty simple, classic 9.0.